Hey everyone, and welcome to the Champagne Blockchain Meetup. Today joining us, we have Andrew Westberg. Andrew is the operator of Blue Cheese Steakhouse, which has been running since the beginning of the Cardano incentivized testnet, helping to produce blocks to keep the network decentralized. He is also the developer of the Jormanager software tool that helps Stakepool operators do things like monitor nodes and keys on a pretty dashboard, create connections to remote hosts, restart their nodes and rotate their keys, create new nodes, monitor and validate their blocks, and etc. And then he also created a tool called the CNCLI, the Cardano node command line interface, that allows the pool operators to calculate their upcoming leadership slots so they know when they really have to be ready to create those blocks. And that utility is utilized by most of the Stakepool operator community and has no equal as far as accuracy and performance. So, and on your website, Andrew, you have a very nice little setup of your server that hosts your Stakepool. But I'm curious, what do you have for your backup? Because what happens if somebody runs over your fiber line that's coming into your home there?
Yeah, so I actually use a cloud host out of Germany. So it's not even on the same continent. And that host is continually using CNCLI ping back to my main relays. And if it doesn't see the relays, then it will take over block production within 1 minute. So, I've had power outages here sometimes that if they last more than 30 minutes, then my battery backup fails, and then that cloud server has to take over the block production. So
Right on.
that's kind of the backup system I've been running for a little while now.
Cool. Well, it's really awesome to hear about the things you have going on. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and hopefully you can tell us about Jormanager and how you as an operator use that, and how that you've sort of designed that to be a tool that can help operators all across the ecosystem keep this blockchain decentralized.
Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And so this is the main dashboard you're looking at for Jormanager right here. It's a web-based tool just hosted locally. And it's designed to look at all of your Cardano nodes, whether they're running on this machine or on a remote machine. What we're looking at right now is the Guild test network. The Guild network is a special test net that is run by a group of Stakepool operators and developers. And so we run a network that has very fast epochs so that we can test all kinds of things. We can test key rotations, we can test how long it takes for certain actions, like if you're changing fees, for those to take effect. But this main Guild network, it rolls the epoch over once an hour, so we can test all kinds of fun stuff. So, for example, I used this when I was switching over from command line keys for my pool over to hardware-based keys, with a ledger device. You can test all of that here, so you can get the epoch timing correct. So yeah, I started working on Jormanager pretty early after, well, I guess during it was a different app during the incentivized testnet, but then it kind of became a Stakepool management tool when I won a Cardano Foundation award. And so I started developing it into just more of a general purpose tool for managing stake pools. There are a lot of other tools out there for managing your pool. Another common one is called CNTools. You may have heard about it. That's more of a command line based interface. It's not really a nice GUI, but it's still very useful for doing that. And I would say a good chunk of the operators out there use CNTools. A few of them use Jormanager, not as many as during the incentivized testnet, but still a good amount. So the main thing here is the dashboard. This just gives you an idea of what's going on in the system. So you can watch the blocks tick up as new blocks are made. So if your nodes diverge from each other, that there's a problem there. This is your outgoing peers. So who am I connected out to get new blocks? And so you see I have my pool node is connected just to my relay node, which is called guild. And guild has 8 outgoing connections to other people that are on this particular network. The incoming peers, I have 12 coming into me. So it's important to have incoming peers because that's the way that block propagation works on Cardano is blocks are not pushed out to the network. They're actually pulled from your relay nodes onto other nodes. So you have to have those incoming connections where they pull the blocks off of your server. So my relay points back at my core node, and then other people's relays point at my relay node. So they pull the blocks off my core node through my relays and out to the wider network. And that's a really interesting distinction between Cardano, excuse me, and other networks, because that allows you to have kind of the best performance, and you never overload a node by flooding it with traffic because it's a pull. Everything is a pull. So it's not like you're blasting it out and then somebody gets hit by a fire hose of information. It's always a pull. So your node, whenever it pulls a block, it's always ready and has enough processor resources, RAM, everything to receive and process that block. KES days remaining. This is just the metric of how long your KES key is valid for. So this is kind of the hot key for making blocks. You have a cold key and a hot key. The hot key is just, you can roll them over every so often to keep them active. And this prevents the situation where, you know, a pool is kind of dead on the network. It'll eventually be pulled offline after 90 some odd days of inactivity if you don't rotate these KES keys. And then the rewards for that pool will just plummet to 0, and then everybody will leave the pool, and then the pool will stop producing blocks. So that's just kind of a protection mechanism. The other thing you can do with KES keys is, you know, let's say I wanted to go on vacation for a bit. I could work with another operator, hand him my hot KES keys. He could run the pool for me while I'm gone. And then when I come back, I just generate new KES keys and I can take over block production again. So it's important to secure your KES keys, but it's a hot key, so it could be replaced within a couple epochs. So the next tab we have on Jormanager here is the host. And this is where you list the actual machines that you're running off of. So on this one, I just have a local one. If I go over here to mainnet, I have several different ones here. You can see I've got, you know, my remote relay. I've got another remote server that runs, you know, most of my nodes, and then I've got the local one here. But this is actually all your SSH connections to any remote servers, plus, you know, your local one. So you can add new host, put in all the information, point to where your SSH keys are stored for the currently logged in user, paths to Cardano node, Cardano CLI that it needs. And the next tab is the nodes tab. This is where you actually create your relays and or your core nodes. So if I wanted to create a new relay, you just go through the nice wizard here. The default color is, I did a Google search for the world's ugliest color, and this is what it came up with, this nasty brown. And that was to encourage people to always pick a new color when they're creating a new node. So you can do that. You can tell it what host to be on. You can make it a relay or a core node. How many processor threads you want it to take. If it's a core node, there's a whole lot more configuration to do. And you give it addresses. I'm not going to actually 3000. I'll go through this just so you can see it.
Can I just say I love the game theory you employed to encourage people to pick a color and not
Yeah.
to play with people.
Yeah, we don't. we just make them pick the ugliest color or choose a different one. So you can either, if you have cold keys, from a previous setup, like if you used CN tools to create your pool, you can just drag and drop them here, or you can just say, generate some new ones for me. The VRF keys are the ones that determine which blocks you produce. So that's kind of your verifiable random function keys that just add some randomness to the block selection. And then the KES keys we already talked a little bit about. And then you can set up, fees account. That's who's going to pay for this registration. You can pick an owner account, pick a rewards account where the rewards will land. And then you can specify, a pledge and a min pool cost per epoch and figure out how much you want to charge margin wise. You can make it maybe a 3% pool. You can add relays, any number of relays you want. Then metadata, this is where you specify, all kinds of information, icons, tickers, descriptions. We'll just get past the screen. But yeah, there's a whole lot of information you can fill in. This will give you like a lot of information that shows up on Pool Tool and Ada Pools, icons, logos, links to your YouTube, Twitch, Discord, anything you want here. And then finally, you have to give it the sudo password so it can actually go and create the node. But we'll go ahead and not do that right now. I just kind of wanted to show you that wizard for creating nodes. It's a whole lot easier than doing it on the command line. Let's see. Let's show you next the blocks tab. So the blocks tab shows you what's happening with your pools, like what it's creating. You can also run leader logs inside Jormanager in addition to CNCLI. So I built it into this tool as well. So if we run, another thing to note is all the keys are stored encrypted in a database. So anytime you want to do something that needs one of those private keys, you have to put in a spending password so that it can get access to those keys. And then it calculated that I've got some blocks upcoming. It looks like I've got one coming in a minute or so, or 20 seconds. So let's just watch this one go through. So this block should be minted here very soon. We can wait a few seconds and we'll watch it come through. So it should go into a completed status. And then after 3 minutes, I validate that it actually made it onto the chain. Five, 26, 27, boom. And we show it as completed. There's the block hash. And then after 3 minutes, we'll validate that it made it on the chain, and then we'll switch it to a forged status. So this is kind of good to give you an overview of, are my pools performing as they should? And once you're far enough into the epoch, you can even calculate the future upcoming slots that you've been elected for. We may not be far enough. Yeah, we are far enough. So we could look at the upcoming one. Looks like we're elected for 7 slots across a few different pools here. And you can split it out, by individual pool if you want. In this GP02, that pool doesn't have a lot of stakes, so it got no blocks. The final screen I want to show you is the wallet. And this is probably one of the most powerful wallets that exist in Cardano today. And I'm even including Daedalus and Yoroi in that. So with this wallet, you can do one-to-many or many-to-many sends. So typically in most wallets, you have an account and you send to another account. So if I wanted to send a little bit of ADA into maybe this account. I could say I want to send 5 ADA over there. It'll calculate the fees and everything, how much is remaining. But this wallet is different in that you can add additional entries. So I could send some amount there. I could send maybe to this rewards account. I want to send a few percentage of my ADA over there. And so you can do the way the Cardano blockchain works is with UTXOs. And so you can have any number of inputs and any number of outputs. So you can send money from one account to 5 people, all in one transaction, all for one low transaction fee. In the world of NFTs, you can blast NFTs from, one account to many, many people who have purchased your NFT. It also has metadata, so you can store additional messages, kind of like this on the chain. I've stored some fun ones in the past. I think I put one on the chain of the conversation I had with another pool operator when I first did the first predicted block on the testnet. I stored kind of the back and forth conversation I had of, I'm going to predict that this block is going to go at this time, and then, us getting excited after that. But let's go ahead and send this transaction. And so now we just have to wait for the next block to go. And then you'll see this balance change a little bit from 89. We should see some arrive in the other accounts. And a block on Cardano happens on average every 20 seconds. So it doesn't take too long for things to move. And there it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and send this one back. Oh, it also looks like I've got some rewards to claim. So we'll do that in just a second. So let's send this back to the funds account. And we'll send an amount. So we'll send that amount back. So we end up with just 2 in this account again. Okay. And then claiming rewards. You can do this in Yoroi. Daedalus does kind of automatic rewards claiming, but I kind of like this way of doing it where it's manually claimed. And you have to pick usually an account that's going to pay the fees. So that's the fee payer is this account. And again, with claiming rewards, you can send them to any number of additional accounts you want. If you want to say send some to a wallet here, you can. If you want to change it to an address in Daedalus, you can do that. Or Yoroi. Let's pick this one again. Yeah, you have to have at least one account that can pay the fees though. So we got transaction succeeded. And then that 125 should end up in this account here in another 20 seconds. Let's take a look at our logs. Oh, we just got a block. So yep, there it goes. And it's in there. If I wanted to add some more to this owner account, I could do that. And then we'll move on to something else. So let's send 200 down to him. So now he's a little more likely to make blocks in the future. The next thing I kind of wanted to show was CNCLI. And this tool kind of came about for the same reason. Let me find the correct window here. Here we go. This tool came about just with my frustration with leader log. So during the ITN, we had leader log capabilities baked into the node. The Rust team built it for us, and leader logs were an integral part of how the ITN worked. So they would generate the leader logs at the very beginning of the epoch, which was every day. And then it was up to the node to just follow along, and it actually used the leader log to determine when to mint blocks. With the new Haskell node, it determines whether or not you're a leader for a slot once every second. So it's kind of only calculating the leader logs as you go. And so what I did is I kind of reverse engineered the Haskell node, rewrote that in Rust, and built the leader log capabilities into the CNCLI tool. So we can now calculate ahead of time. So if I look at, here is kind of a script I use to run my leader logs. So the first thing I do is I run this stake snapshot command. So let's take a look at this one real quick. We'll just run it in a different window. So if I run this stake snapshot command, this is a new command in the latest version of Cardano node. This gives you an idea of how much stake you have in your pool compared to how much stake the total system has. And so this will give us an output of some JSON data after about 20 seconds. It has to look through every staking address in the system. And it'll spit out mark, set, and go. So these are different snapshots. So the mark snapshot is the one that's coming up next, or I guess the one that was just taken. The set is for the current epoch, and the go is for previous epoch. So this is the one that's used to calculate rewards. Mark is used to calculate future. So it's like on your mark, get set, go. And this command is brand new. I said it was just developed by Kevin Hammond from IOG. He's one of the founders of the Haskell language, believe it or not. And I worked with him to get this command created, because previously we had to dump the entire ledger state into a massive, gigabyte size file. And it was just really painful for most stateful operators to use that. So once we have that, that snapshot, we can use that to determine how likely we are to make a block. And so the next thing we do is we synchronize CNCLI with the blockchain. So we'll just run this command real quick. And normally this all just runs automatically. I'm in the wrong folder. So I'm syncing this with a local node I've got. And then it connects to it, syncs up to the chip, and then just exits if I run this no service. Most of the time, it can be run just as a service in the background, just collecting blocks as they arrive. But this implements some of the networking protocols on the Cardano node. So it's actually connecting to the other nodes just like any other node or any other dataless wallet would, communicating with all of those various nodes. So after we do that, the next thing to do is to run the leader log command. Let's go ahead and, well, we'll just run it, and you can kind of see what it looks like. So we'll do the same thing here. And let's go over to mainnet and we'll look at the blocks tab. We'll look at blue cheese, which is the first one. Okay, so we've synced. And now we're calculating leader logs. You can kind of look at my processor over here. It's on fire. Well, it's calculating that. And it says we've gotten 18 slots. And it gives some other good information here. You know, the epoch we're in, the nonce value. This is what determines what part of the randomness for what determines which slots you've been elected for. How many slots you should get ideally based on your stake and what your maximum performance is. So this epoch was actually an unlucky epoch for this pool. I'm only making 68% of the blocks I really should be making. So I got elected for 18 and I'm supposed to be making 26 and a half. So it's going to be a low rewards epoch for this pool. Some of the other pools did better, and I can show you kind of that. This is the output of my script. So you can kind of see all the pools I run and how they did. Some of them not so good, others did very well. So you can see the randomness at play. But yeah, leader logs is the main thing CNCLI is used for. It also has a number of other different commands you can do. So leader log is one of them. Nonce just gives you the nonce value. You can also do ping, send slots, and send tips, send your data to pool tool. So if you look at pool tool, you can see, you know, how many blocks you're expected, and that sends that information to pool tool in a secure fashion. So they know how many, but they don't know exactly when those are going to occur. And then the send tips just gives you this nice little green badge that says, hey, you're on the tip of the blockchain. So people looking at your pool know that you're a well-run pool if you're doing that send tip stuff. Status just says whether or not you're synced or not. And sync, of course, syncs the blockchain, and validate will validate any particular block to say, did it make it onto the chain or not? But let's do a quick ping. So that's pinging my own relay. We can do a quick ping of that. And you can get durations, how long it took to connect, how long it took to do the entire Cardano handshake with that node. So it actually does more than just a ping. It communicates with it and does the mini protocol to do the handshake there. Any questions anybody has on what you've seen so far? That's pretty much all the content I had for you.
So I do have a question. So you were showing the list there of when you get elected to be the slot leader. What happens? I know that sometimes there are slot battles, etc. How does that work out? How does someone else get that from you, or how do you miss out on when you can have your slot?
Yeah, so great question. The assigned slots, like I said, they're randomly assigned, and that's for security reasons, so that nobody knows for sure when I'm going to make this block. The downside to that is somebody else could also randomly selected for the exact same slot as me. And what happens when both of us make a block in the same slot? Well, what happens then is called a slot battle. And so if I do, so let's look at the CNCLI database that I have synced. Actually, I'm going to have to go to a different server to do this. Let's go to this one. So this one is running a sync in the background that is always keeping up to date with the blockchain. So it will actually see slot battles. And so if I select, I think this one is a slot battle. Let's just see. Yeah, so this one is a slot battle where you see that there's, if I selected by the slot number, there are two different ones there. One is orphaned. This first one is an orphan block, so it did not make it on the chain. And the second one did make it on the chain. And so whenever you make a block, your block contains the leader VRF. The leader VRF is what determines, it proves that you are allowed to make a block. And the lower that value is, there's a threshold you have to get under in order to make a block. And so other pools can look at your block, look at the leader VRF, look at the stake in your pool, and then validate that block before putting it into their chain. They can validate that, yes, you were allowed to make this block. And you see they usually start out with some number of zeros that determines how low of it's a really big number, but the lower the number is, the more likely you are to be the winner. So if there's two that are allowed to make a block in the slot, this leader VRF is what gets compared, and whoever is the lowest value is the winner, and that's the one that makes it onto the chain. So in this case, 4 zeros and a 5 is less than 4 zeros and an E. So that's the one that makes it on the chain in this case, and it is not orphaned. So that's kind of how slot battles work. I did a whole video on this on my YouTube channel. I've started doing a YouTube channel you may want to follow. If you go to YouTube, see Andrew Westberg, I have a series called NerdOut, and there was a whole slot battles episode if you want to check it out.
I actually watched that earlier. I was curious. You mentioned, I think in that video, that the smaller pools have an advantage in the slot battles. Was that an intentional design for the system to sort of help out the little guy, or just sort of happen that way?
Yeah, I think it just kind of happened that way. It was more of a byproduct of how it works. It's harder for a smaller pool to make a block to begin with, so their bar is usually lower than a big pool's bar. And so because it's so hard for them to get under it, when they do actually get under it, they're more likely to be a lower VRF value than a big pool. Now, it's still possible for a big pool to have a really low VRF for any given slot, but given that they're making 15 to 20 blocks an epoch and the little guy's making maybe one, he had to get really lucky to make that one. And so that one is unlikely to be lost by them, although it does happen sometimes, and it's very, very sad.
Okay. I know that not everyone reports to Pool Tool, and it's anonymous, but how do we know how often slot battles happen on the network?
Yes, so we do know that it's on average 5% of your blocks on average will be in a slot battle. And again, on average, you will win 2.5% of those. And you'll lose the other 2.5%. And I calculated this recently for across all of my pools for all time. And I came out to a loss ratio. For me, I only lost 2.38% of the time. And I think the discrepancy there is there are a lot of pools out there that just aren't run well. And so maybe they just never made the block they were supposed to make, or they weren't online at the time, or, they didn't rotate their KES keys, or who knows. So yeah, in theory, you're supposed to lose 2.5%, but if you're a well-run good pool, you should lose a little bit less than that.
Right on.
Any other questions or questions in general about Cardano?
Yeah, I have a lot of kind of, I guess, just new user questions about Cardano.
Sure.
I've been paying attention to crypto for 5 years or more, but I'm pretty new to Cardano. Can you kind of walk through how a user would pick a staking pool and how they would stake their coins?
Sure. So let's look at, so what I would do is I would go to Pool Tool first. And so you're looking for a pool that usually you want ones that have made some blocks. So maybe I would sort by lifetime blocks. And then you'll see some of these pools, they've only made blocks because they're what's called oversaturated. So they have too much stake. So you want to find a pool that has some stake, but not too much. So right now, the current saturation point is around 64 million in it. So yeah, this eToro pool is complete garbage. They are taking all the money from the users that are staked on the eToro system. So they don't pay staking rewards. eToro themselves, the company, is just stealing all the money from their users. They're also running their pool very poorly, as you can see. But as you go down, you can see some other pools. You know, you may be familiar with Digi. He's Rick. He runs some good pools. Yeah, so you're going to want to look at a number of things. You want to look at lifetime ROS. Something around high 4s into the 5s is usually a good pool. Pools that reporting to Pool Tool, that's usually a good bet. Atada out of Austria, he runs a good pool. He also writes a number of good Stakepool operator scripts as well. He's a good one to go with. I think he has a couple pools. But yeah, you just want to look through here. You want to look at mostly, you know, lifetime ROS, a decent number of blocks. You want to make sure they're not oversaturated. And then also, you know, it helps if you know the operator, or you can dig down into their pool and find their community. So if they have a good community around them, you can, you know, ask the operator questions directly. I run a Telegram group for all of my people staking to me. So you can just pop on there and ask any questions anytime. But yeah, you can drill down into these pools and
So let's say I pick,
look at their websites, etc.
Yeah, great. Oh, cool. Let's say I pick your pool. So then what do I do?
That's a great question. So you're going to open up, let's say you have a dataless wallet. I'm going to open on the testnet right now. And this also works in Yoroi. And Ada Lite is also another wallet. So in dataless, yeah, we'll let this get synced up here real quick. So there's this delegation center. And so down here, you can look at different stake pools. And I would recommend looking at Pool Tool instead of this tool to figure out who to stake with, just because Dataless is kind of biased, and they're kind of biased to filling up the top pools instead of spreading the stake out. So I would do my research on Pool Tool and then come in here and then type in the pool you want. I think on Testnet, I run a test pool called Profit. And it's currently, yep, so it has a good pledge. You can see it's produced a good number of blocks. And so you can choose to stake to that one. So if you pick it, you can say delegate to this pool, and then it just walks you through the wizard. So it's just picking the wallet you want to delegate from. So this one looks like it's already delegated there, but
okay, yeah, that's great.
Continue, and then yeah, so it says I'm already delegated there. But yeah, you just walk through the wizard. You're going to pay a small fee. So your fee is usually 2 ADA plus the normal transaction fee, which is like 0.2 ADA. And then once you've delegated to a pool, you can always switch your delegation and just pay the 0.2 after that. So it's very cheap to switch. And once you start receiving rewards, you can switch to other pools and you'll never lose rewards by switching.
Right, and that's because of the 2 epoch lag when you do the switch, right?
Correct. So you still receive rewards from your previous pool for 2 more epochs before you start receiving rewards from the new pool you've switched over to. That's kind of how that works. Yep. Yeah, and Yoroi and Adalite, those work very similarly, where you just pick the pool and then delegate to it, and it'll walk you through the process of getting delegated. Any other questions? Anything at all?
I think that's been pretty cool. So I guess what inspired you to get into the Cardano ecosystem, and what got you interested in writing these tools for operators?
Yeah, great question. So I got into the ecosystem, I guess back in 2017, kind of at the height of the bull market, because it was like, oh, I had done a little bit of Bitcoin way back in 2012 and just forgot about it. I mined like, I think 4 Bitcoin just with a graphics card. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but just set it aside. And then once it started taking off in 2017, I was like, maybe there's something to this space. Maybe it's going to go somewhere. I had already kind of missed the boat with Bitcoin at that time. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe there's some better technology out there or something up and coming. So I did a lot of research into all the different ones. Cardano wasn't there at the time. We were still in the Byron phase, it didn't do much, but I really liked the roadmap and where they were going. I liked proof of stake, the lower energy usage. And so I bought a tiny little bit of Cardano kind of on the downside of the end of the bull market there. And then I just watched it languish at 2 cents forever. And then still like the technology, got excited about the incentivized testnet. I was planning on just, running a little node there, seeing what happened, just because I'm a developer and I like technology. And so the testnet software was very, very alpha level stuff. So it was very buggy, and that's kind of how I got into writing tools. So the first Jormanager tool was to fix all the shortcomings of the node crashing all the time or hanging all the time, and still it kept the node running and was able to make blocks. And so at that point I was in the ecosystem. I was the main guy making tools for that. And so I just kind of kept it up, and that was kind of my niche. And my selling point for my pools is, if you join my pools, then you're kind of supporting the development of the ecosystem for all the stake pool operators. And the better I can make things for all the pool operators, the stronger the whole ecosystem gets. And then the more people realize how strong of a network Cardano has. And, that's how things grow organically. So that's the way I can contribute. And so that's what I do.
Very cool. Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything. So I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on and showing us Jormanager and the other tools that you have and explaining the process to us. This has been a really interesting segment. So we'll hopefully, if anybody wants to follow up with you, they can go visit your YouTube channel. I actually really enjoy your videos, just the sort of see the way you explain things, because I feel like you do a very good job of putting it into the terms that I at least can sort of say, like, okay, I get that. I'm not a coder. I hated
Yeah.
Python when I had to struggle through that for my class, and I was just like, but I should just say I don't have the patience for it.
Yeah. No, hopefully, even if you're not, a low-level developer, you can start to appreciate some of the things that were built to, the foundational stuff that's like, oh, that's why they did that.
Yeah.
That's why proof of stake is better, or that's why, they did the wallet that has all of these addresses in it, and how they can roll all that up into a nice secure wallet off of just 24 words. That's some of those crypto primitives are pretty mind blowing once you break it down into all these really smart people. In some cases, Bitcoin developers originally thought them up, but Cardano doesn't care where it comes from. If it comes from Bitcoin, great. If it comes from, Algorand or Tezos or whatever, if the scientific paper gets written, we take it and we put it into the code. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And maybe some other ecosystem will start stealing some of your stuff too. So
they already have. So if you look at Ergo, Ergo uses a lot of the extended UTXO model that was developed for Cardano. I think Polkadot uses some pieces of the consensus algorithm. I think they use Ouroboros, if I'm not mistaken. There are other protocols out there that use the Ouroboros proof of stake consensus algorithms or pieces of it. So that's kind of the whole point of Cardano, is to not make that stuff proprietary, just to share it with the world, and may the best crypto win. So
it's awesome. All right. Well, on that note, we'll end our session for today, but thanks again. And
thanks for having me.
yeah, and if what's your website is Blue Cheese Steakhouse, that's steak with a AKE, steakhouse.com, for anybody who wants to go and check you out.
Yep. There's links to the Telegram there too, if you want to join the community on the Telegram. It's a lot of fun conversations happening there. So check it out.
Check it out.